Buenos días. Y bienvenidos a todos. There are many things that keep us awake at night. We worry about climate change, and we worry about geopolitical uncertainty, poverty, and job security. But how often do you hear people talking about the suffering visited on young girls by child marriage? It's time to end this silence, and it's high time to put an end to child marriage. Aproximadamente 640 millones de mujeres y niñas que viven en actualidad se casaron durante su infancia. That is 640 million women and girls alive today were married as children. So this morning, necesitamos ser parte de la solución. We need to become part of the solution here by really listening to this dialogue and thinking about how we can all help, how the private sector can work hand in hand with the public sector to bring some urgency to this issue. It's about safeguarding children. It's about putting that at the center of our thoughts. And it's about making sure that child marriage ends so that girls can just be girls. La Roca Village and the Bicester Collection have positioned themselves as leaders, motivating the private sector to really embrace the concept that the protection of children needs to be the cornerstone of sustainable growth and development. The empowerment of children, wherever they're born, is at the heart of the Bicester Collection and La Roca Village's Do Good campaign, which is a wide-ranging global philanthropic program that involves supporting charities. It involves also very innovative programs that champion social entrepreneurs who are women. And it's about advocacy, which this Unlock Futures think tank today is part of. In partnership with the Office of the United Nations Special Representative on Violence Against Children, the Bicester Collection just last month hosted its inaugural Unlock Futures think tank, where it assembled all sorts of international private sector leaders to address the issue of child protection in travel and tourism, in leisure, in entertainment, and in gaming. So as we come together today, the La Roca Village and the Bicester Collection teams are really hoping that the insights that you hear, the conversations you listen to, will help us all really use our collective influence to help protect children and to end child marriage. Before we begin, if you would like to spread the word on social media, we should have some hashtags. Here they are. Yes, please use them. Unlock Futures, Act Now, and Do Good. So I would like at this point to introduce you to our hosts, La Roca Village and the Bicester Collection. Oh, and Elena.
The Bicester Collection has one mission: to make the lives of others better. Our brands, our guests, our people, and our communities.
Do Good unites all our villages under a clearly defined vision and purpose, making a difference locally and globally for generations to come.
Together we care, protect, and grow.
Monetary, information, influence, services, people and talent, we have the ability to channel these resources to help do good and make a big contribution on our communities.
Together, we achieve the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals,
such as 1, no poverty, and 5, gender equality.
Our villages are united around one cause.
We unlock the future of women and children wherever they are born.
We believe in a world where every woman and child, wherever they are born, have equal access to health, education, and economic opportunities. This is a right, not a privilege.
We do good through fundraising, volunteering, raising awareness, and purposeful pop-ups for our long-term charity partners.
Some charities are global, some are more local. We've chosen them carefully to make sure we support different missions. These missions range from quality education for children, a loving home for children, support for women that have gone through conflict and war, and even a better future for children with critical illnesses.
We bring women and children's empowerment to the front of the agenda.
Creating differentiated programs to accelerate our goals, such as the Unlock Her Future Prize.
There's nothing more rewarding than knowing that you've made a difference in someone's life.
Together, we unlock futures for tomorrow. Let's do good together today.
Let's do good together today.
Elena Foguet, the Business Director of Value Retail Spain, which includes La Roca y Las Rosas villages.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bon dia a tothom. Buenos días. Good morning. Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends. Today, we gather in a shared vision, unlock futures. A commitment that has been core to our mission since our very beginning. For nearly 30 years, the Bicester Collection has created and curated extraordinary experiences, reimagining the world of luxury retail, hospitality, sports and entertainment, delighting the world's most discerning guest who visits our destinations in Europe, China, and North America. And for 30 years, it's been our mission to harness our platform to drive meaningful, lasting change, to deliver growth we can be proud of, and in doing so, to make the life of others better. Through our global philanthropic program, Do Good, the Bicester Collection is committed to unlock futures for women and children, wherever they are born, in support of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are now less than 6 years remaining to achieve all of them. And we need to touch the lives of all the children in one way or another. Healthy, well-educated children who are protected from violence and exploitation are our best guarantee for long-term sustainable growth and development. 2024 marks 15 years since the United Nations created the Office of the Special Representative on Violence Against Children. And in its milestone, Bicester Collection is proud to join forces with the United Nations to amplify awareness, foster private sector, and engage drive actions to promote the safeguarding of children as a cornerstone of this sustainable growth development in our societies. For La Roca Village, our journey to address one of the most critical forms of child exploitation, the child of marriage, began in 2023, last year, through a partnership with UNICEF Spain, and supported by girls' education advocate Nada Lahdal, who joined us here today. Seems a long journey, and we just started last year, but we have achieved a lot. Thanks, Nada. And thanks all UNICEF as well. With an ambition to empower girls and promote education, and in support of the United Nations call to action, we embarked on a campaign to raise awareness and funds for UNICEF Girls' Education Program in Jordan. And you'll know later on why Jordan. El think tank de hoy pone el matrimonio infantil al frente de la agenda. En apoyo de la labor de las Naciones Unidas y UNICEF, Bicester Collection y la Roca Village se han comprometido a contribuir a impulsar el cambio sostenible y transformador. Pero no se trata de un reto que un colectivo pueda abordar por sí solo. Para lograr un verdadero impacto, debemos unirnos un ecosistema influyente que aglutine el sector privado, el sector público, activistas y defensores. Todos tenemos un papel que desempeñar porque para proteger a la infancia y acabar con el matrimonio infantil no es solo importante, es urgente. Cada año, 13 millones de niñas, 13 millones, más de 1 millón por mes, son obligadas a casarse. Y no son solo cifras, 13 millones, son vidas reales, son futuros robados. Nuestra reunión de hoy es realmente un llamamiento a la acción entre todos, a desbloquear futuros. Y, sin más, tengo el gran honor de empezar dándole la palabra a la doctora Najat Mala, representante especial de las Naciones Unidas sobre la violencia contra los niños, que nos dirigirá hoy unas inspiradoras y muy emocionantes también mensajes. Muchas gracias y let's do together today.
Dear friends and partners, it is an honor to join you today as we unite to do good to protect children from child marriage. Child marriage is one of the worst forms of violence against children. Despite many commitments and many legal reforms, the progress to end child marriage is slow and uneven around the world, owing to differing cultural, economic, legal, educational, and political contexts. Child marriage is rooted in gender inequality and fueled by poverty, gender discrimination, harmful social norms, and barriers to education. Globally, every 3 seconds a girl is forced to marriage. Child marriage has a devastating impact on girls. Child marriage compromises girls' development and often results in early pregnancy, school dropout, mental health issues. Ending child marriage is possible, and it makes economic sense. Ending child marriage would save governments 5% or more of their education budget by 2030. Ending child marriage is everyone's business, and the private sector has a crucial role to play. Many companies are rightly focused on sustainability. Sustainable means being green. Sustainable means being inclusive. Sustainable means respecting local culture and empowering communities. But it also means being safe for children. Investing in sustainable industries with child protection at its core is needed more than ever. That is why today's event is so important. It is a crucial opportunity to raise awareness, share good practices, and mobilize action. I hope that at the end of this event, we will have a set of public commitments that can promptly be translated into concrete action to help end once and for all forms of violence against children. The 2030 Agenda includes the objectives of ending violence against children and child marriage. With less than 6 years to go, the world is not on track to achieve these objectives. There is no more time to waste. We must act now. I thank you for your attention.
Very inspiring words from Najat. Every 3 seconds, someone losing their potential and their hopes for a future is simply not acceptable, not in any world. So now we'd like to go to Abu Dhabi via Tunisia, where we're going to speak with the 2015 Nobel Peace Prize winner, Wided Bouchamawi. She, frankly, is an inspiration to girls everywhere and women. Having led the Tunisian Chamber of Trade and Commerce and Craft for over 10 years, and being the first woman to have ever done that. She is also very famous for her work with the Quartet for Tunisian National Dialogue, which is the organization that won that Nobel Peace Prize that Wided shares with her team. So Wided?
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be with you, even though it's online.
Sabah al-khair.
Sabah al-noor. Okay.
Wided, I'm going to get right to it. Africa is a continent with some of the highest rates of child marriage, but it varies wildly between countries. Tunisia has a 2% child marriage rate. Niger has an appalling 76% child marriage rate. What do you attribute Tunisia's success in largely avoiding the scourge of child marriage? And when it comes to education, which I think you will say is key, what is Tunisia getting right? And are there aspects of its education program that should be emulated around the world?
Yeah, I think what is very important, to focus on it is that we had a 56 a visionary person, our leader Bourguiba, the first president in Tunisia, and he got the idea to set up a special code, status code for the family and for women. And education was and is still compulsory till age of 16, and marriage. They fixed also the age of the marriage. And what is very important is when you have this kind of legal frame, when you have this political will to encourage women and girls to go to school, to be educated, to have the access to health. I think it's very important. We have this legal frame. That's why, women, they are present. They are more present than in other countries. They are in the. They can work. They can go outside. They can travel by themselves. They can open a bank account. They can also. It shows their partner. And I think that's why maybe Tunisia is a little bit different from others. And as you said, education is a key. If we'd like to progress, if we'd like to anticipate problems, if we'd like to be a developing country, we need to focus on education. Education should be compulsory for everyone, and everyone should have also access to health. Everyone should have access also to the dignity, and the dignity, we can have dignity when we have, all the tools, all the facilities, and we'll have the same rights than men.
We have people from the private sector who are listening to your remarks. What do you think the private sector can do to help end child marriage and support cultural change that will be more empowering to girls around the world?
I think we as a business community, we have a big role to play, because besides we are entrepreneurs, we are creating wealth, and we are providing jobs. We need also to be aware about what is happening around us. We need also to not, hire children in our companies, to educate more our employees and our staff, to have more an openness dialogue, and also to help in building schools, in creating, in creating, let's say, this social impact, the social environment around us. We have this role to play because, you know, we are living in different communities, we are a part of the country, we are citizens, and we need also to protect and to work on changing this mentality that men or girls and boys, they have the same rights, and also to hire more women in our companies, to encourage them to go, and to move forward, to have big responsibilities, and because we are able, we have the capacities, we have also the knowledge, we can lead, we can be, entrepreneurs, we can be leaders, we can be CEOs of companies, we can do everything, because what we do need is tools by training, by learning, by having this kind of this mentality to share everything. If we share everything with everyone, I think it's going to be an open space for all of us to benefit from that, and we can also progress, and we can go forward and move forward for creating this wealthy environment, this peaceful environment for all of us. Our role is very important, but we need to work close to the union, close to the community, close to the civil society. We have to play this role as, let's say, maybe kind of leaders on that. And I think we can do it. And I'm convinced that we have to change this image that we as business community or as private sector, we don't care about what is happening around us.
What can you say we did about connectivity and dialogue, kind of in broad terms, as the way to get change happening in societies? How does that help empower girls?
You know, for me, I believe that if we'd like to avoid all kinds of stereotypes, all kinds of fixed ideas, if we can also want to reduce, the conflicts, if we'd like also to build, let's say, a very, diversified society, we need to accept that dialogue is the key. The dialogue is a way to listen to each other, to understand each other, and to put, if there is conflict or problems on the table. When we are sitting around the same table, and when we are together and without any restriction, and it's going to be with an inclusive way, we need to have everyone around the table, no exclusion at all. So it's going to facilitate, because when we know each other better, and we can avoid all this let's say stereotypes, and also we are able to find solutions. I know it's very difficult to resolve everything, and it's utopic to say we can, through the dialogue, we can also avoid conflicts or wars. No, but at least we are creating the new path for our life together. Living together for me is a key also to reduce the conflicts, and when we speak about dialogue, it should be inclusive. We should have the gender equality in the. We should have. We need to have men and the same number of men and women around the table. You know, as a mediator, as a peace. Let's say not leaders, but making. For me, I worked a lot on all this peace, on this conflict resolution and peace models and peace strategies. I am always asking to have women, because women and children, they are the most affected persons and people in all different conflicts. But coming to a solution, to the dialogue, we don't include women, and this is really a mess. This is it's not a way. It's not a fair way, because sometimes men, they have to decide to take decision on behalf of women. So if you are neglecting, the half of the population. It means you are not it means that you are here just to decide for them. They are not they don't represent something for you, and also we don't care about what they are thinking, about what they are about their proposals, their suggestions. That's why I think dialogue is going to be kind of let's facilitator, if I may say that, and dialogue is going to be an open space to listen to each one, and by dialogue we can also try to find solution to all this, I mean, to the education, to the health, to everything, and also we can be kind of force as civil society to really to push the politician to take decision and to set up some laws and some rules to protect us and to protect everyone.
Ouidad has been named Professor of Diplomacy and Conflict Resolution at NYU in Abu Dhabi, and that's why she's joining us from there, and they've recognized her skills as a negotiator. On that subject, what would you suggest the best tools for girls who are trying to push back against families, societies that are trying to marry them off? Do you have any thoughts about how they can convince others that a better path for them involves their own free will?
You know, for me, I believe that we need to engage men also with us, because we cannot do something, anything. We cannot change the world by ourselves. We need to have, I mean, the men and the boys, they should be engaged in all the process, and also because we need to improve this gender equality and also to reduce the gender gap, because we need to empower women. If we are empowering women and girls, we are offering a better future for all of us. It's going to advance also this to have more equity, more happiness in the world, and this is very important also to educate families, because education is going to be, when you educate girls and women, they're going to know their rights. If they know their rights, they're going to ask for them, and that is very important for us. I mean, to have them and to educate them. Also, I think we need to start or to think about how to have this continued education. We can learn. You know, for me, for example, I joined Harvard Kennedy School at the age of 60, because for me, education, I believe education is a tool, and we need also to learn every day. We need to listen every day. We need to exchange ideas every day, and also to have, even for us as women, as girls, we need also to have the capacity and the ability to learn. We need to, I mean, to be very curious, and to look for any opportunities to improve our life, to improve our, position, and to not to be scared, and to accept challenges, and to accept risks, and to say yes, we are here. We can, really, we can be a part of the society. And this is the end. Also, maybe if I can say we can let's make a call for everyone, for the international community. Please work on this gender equality. We need to have this frame. We've seen now in different countries, the women, they receive less pay than men. Women, they don't have the access to school. Women, they don't have access to their rights. Women, they don't have access to the health. So now I think it's a question of money. It's our concern. Everyone should be concerned by that, because we as mom, as mother, as spouses, as sisters, aunties, we are living with our families, and we need, and we wish for everyone the prosperity. We wish for everyone the dignity. But this, it can be possible if when we work together, when we have also these tools. So we need to also to reduce the poverty everywhere, and this is, I think it's our role as the private sector and also the government, because sometimes we are talking about this early marriage, because sometimes families, they are obliged, but I don't like this word. I mean, just to look for anything for their girls, because they don't have enough money or enough income to feed their family. So the economics, I mean, the economic side is very important, just to create this business environment to facilitate, I mean, creating companies, to have also this kind of tools to help, I mean, the young people to be more entrepreneur, to take some risks, and also to use all this, I mean, let's say, technology, I mean, to spread some information, communication about, and to avoid some stereotypes, to educate people, because sometimes we are using this kind of tools just to, sometimes we spread some fake news, but we need to really to be sure that these tools can help us. We can learn from at home, and we had this nice experience during this COVID. We used a lot the internet connection, and we learned a lot. So and maybe I can finish by that to say also we need also to change the mentality by these traditional forms of masculinity everywhere. I mean, this is in some places we have that. That's why maybe we have to work together and to engage the religious. We have to engage also the traditional leaders, to engage the civil society, to really to discuss about this and to fight. To fight and to find solution also to this early marriage, and to focus that education is a tool, and also women or girls, they have the same rights than men.
Widad, thank you very much for your insight.
You're welcome. Most welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So there are different reasons why families marry off their girls. Sometimes they just want one less mouth to feed. Other times they need the bride price, which can be cattle, it can be money, it can be property, or a combination of the above. Sometimes they want to protect their girls from poverty or conflict. Sometimes they worry that if their daughter gets pregnant out of wedlock, it will be a shame on the entire family. Or they want their girls to have lots and lots of children and to start young. Or as one of our panelists told me, some families see girls, quote, like vegetables who just get old on the shelf. Obviously, the reasons for not forcing girls into marriage are much stronger, but the key to really changing patterns is, as we've been saying, education. So let's talk about how that's done. And let me introduce our panel. And I'm going to invite them one by one up to the stage, starting with Nada Al-Akhdal, who knows more about this subject. And Nada, we need to make sure that you sit by your picture.
Here or
yeah,
there?
You sit. I think, oh, here?
Here.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were right, I was wrong. So Nada knows more about this subject than just about anyone. She managed to escape 2 arranged marriages. There were 2 contracts that her family had set up for her in Yemen. She, in total desperation, made a viral video when she was 11 years old. And it was thanks to that video and her courageous uncle, Abdel, who's here with us today. Nada reclaimed her future. She has been, in 2023, the ambassador for the Do Good program at La Roca Village. She has something called the NADA Foundation, which works on education of girls in the UK, where she now lives, and also she does her best to reach Yemen as well and other countries. And all of this while she's studying to be an international lawyer. So, NADA. Now we have Lara Contreras, who is the Director of Influence, Alliances, and Programs for UNICEF Spain. Lara has spent her career with different organizations working all over the world, in South Asia, in the Middle East. She has an incredibly impressive educational background. And in her work in places such as South Asia and the Middle East, she's organized disaster relief, among other responsibilities. And she's also held quite a few teaching positions at universities, so that she's been able to share her incredible wealth of knowledge about the humanitarian world and humanitarian work to future generations. So welcome.
Thank you.
Begoña Arana ha dedicato su vida a ayudar a las comunidades de riesgo en España. Ella nunca para de pensar en cómo salvar a las mujeres y niños del abuso, tráfico humano, esclavitud y matrimonio infantil, que fa parte, que es esclavitud, que convierte niñas en esclavas. Ella es la fundadora de Nuevo Hogar Betania, una organización benéfica para ayudar los excluidos sociales y también a aquellos que sufren abuso. La reina de España está continuamente apoyando el trabajo de Begoña. Ella también ganó el premio Princesa de Girona en 2019. So here we are, and I am going to start with Nada and ask her to tell us what it is like, what it was like to be an 11-year-old girl told she was going to get married.
Thank you so much for everyone who worked hard to make this happen. Thank you for coming as well, for supporting us to fundraise and spread awareness about ending child marriage. It means a lot with you guys. One hand cannot clap by itself, so with you, it can make it happen. So as an 11 years old, I was just looking for a safe place. I just wanted to be alive because I lost my auntie at the age of 11. At the age of 14, she committed suicide and she ended her life and left a daughter behind. And my sister tried to commit suicide. I didn't want to accept my life like my auntie did and end up like her, or refuse without doing any action and end up like my sister. So when they approached me saying my wedding will be in 3 days, I was just shocked. I was scared. So I said nothing, but I ran away the next day. I made the video that went viral, and with the support of my uncle, we went to the Ministry of Interior, and I was protected. I was only protected because the media put pressure on the government and the system to protect me. But in fact, I shouldn't have had to seek help from the media to be protected. The system should have provided me with a protection, with a safe space where I can seek help from them. However, after that, I've started believing that I need to do something. I had the luck to be survived from this crime, and I am alive. I need to give the same chance for other girls, and that's how I start being active and and spreading awareness about the consequences of child marriage by maybe sharing my story, and hope it will be an example for people to spread awareness and educate them about how important the life of girls. And that is where we launched Nada Foundation. It was under the support of the previous Yemeni Prime Minister. We've done in Yemen 3 programs to educate girls and save them from child marriage and domestic violence. I start speaking up about it more active in social media, and here we are with La Roca Do Good program. I am very proud to be their ambassador. We have done a lot in this almost 18 months by spreading awareness towards the consequences of child marriage. And in fact, I know we've been talking from the beginning how child marriages and the numbers as well, even though because of COVID, there is a lot of improvement. According to the UNICEF, almost 25 million child marriage girls have been prevented in the last decade. That's amazing, that's improvement, but that's not enough as well. Unfortunately, we just know the idea of child marriage or the name of it, and we think we know the whole, crime. But in fact, no, it happens all around us, even though in countries that prevent child marriage and criminalize it, likewise Spain, but it still happens because it is very easy to manipulate religions and traditions to do a marriage with the children, or even take the children to a different country where it happens all around the world and arrange the child marriage. I would rather call it child marriage than early marriage, because early marriage, I think it's a cover. The parents can use early marriage, but we should always use child marriage, because any girl under the age of 18 is child. She's not getting early marriage. Early marriage is when you say I'm getting married at 22 or 24. That's an early marriage. So we have to always remember children are below 18, and that's what happens. They've been sold and raped under the name of marriage. And cover it up with traditions and maybe religions for you to not cross the line and for you to not even think about disagreeing with it. But we have to be able to recognize the red flags of it. We have to have programs that girls can seek help to. So you cannot tell girls what to do. You cannot tell them to run away. They can't risk their life. They might not be lucky enough to have media to protect them like ours or an uncle. So we have to provide for them for programs that support them. We have to support foundations, and we have to support fundraise for the UNICEF so they can make more programs for the girls to seek help to. And that's how you guys, all of you, can help us on ending child marriage, is by supporting us and supporting the campaign that we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The ability to turn such hardship into a campaign for change and positivity is incredible. Begoña, hacemos un cambio porque tu foto es aquí.
Estupendo.
It's my fault. Okay, so tu trabajo incluye más que la simple prevención del matrimonio infantil. Trata sobre salvar a las niñas y mujeres de cualquier explotación.
Sí.
¿Cómo comenzó a interesarte este tipo de causas y por qué ese día es así importante hoy día para ti?
Bueno, muchas gracias. A ver, yo conecto con el delito de la trata de seres humanos en todas sus modalidades, incluyendo el matrimonio forzoso. En el año 2011, cuando empiezan a acudir y a recibir España pateras cargadas de mujeres en estado de gestación a término, cuando pues se consideraba que estábamos recibiendo exclusivamente inmigración ilegal. No había ninguna situación que reglase, digamos así, la situación que estábamos pasando, ¿no? Solo llegaban mujeres jóvenes o mujeres casi que acababan de cumplir la mayoría de edad, o niñas que por las pruebas biométricas que le hacían los pediatras, pues se veían que eran menores de edad, ¿no? Entonces, esa recepción masiva de mujeres desde el 2011 al 2018 nos hizo introducirnos en la protección de esas niñas y de esas mujeres que llegaban a la costa gaditana, ¿no? Detrás de eso, me agarro firmemente a esta lucha imparable, incansable y de diario, porque una de las mujeres que recibo en nuestro centro, pues resulta que habían sido 25 mujeres explotadas sexualmente, casadas forzosamente en sus países de orígenes y eran menores de edad en aquel momento. Cuando llegan a España después de todo el camino migratorio, pues ya se convierten en mayores de edad, ¿no? Y una de ellas, pues resulta que me dice, pariendo en el paritorio, que quería que yo fuera la madre de su hija. Y ahí es donde pues conecto realmente con todo lo que es esta casuística, todo lo que es la lacra de la explotación en todas sus dimensiones. Y a partir de ahí, bueno, pues tomo voz de ella a través de la empatía máxima de lo que sufren las mujeres. Y después de estos 20 años de lucha intensa, pues ahí me agarro, ¿no?, a ser al final el altavoz de estas mujeres que al final son más vulnerables, que no tienen esa capacidad de llegar a audiencias que puedan remover conciencia, que puedan remover al final los caminos y hacer cambios. Y ahí estamos luchando hacia la protección de todas las que sufren cada día todos los delitos. El delito de la trata en todas sus modalidades, incluyendo el matrimonio forzoso, infantil a la vez. Y es una lucha pues incansable, pero que nos toca mucho, mucho por hacer. España ahora mismo está en una situación muy complicada. Estamos recibiendo a muchísimas mujeres y niñas en unas situaciones de fragilidad máxima. El delito contra la trata de seres humanos en todas sus modalidades es la máxima expresión flagelante de lo que es la máxima expresión de cómo los derechos humanos se transforman en la contra, no se cumplen, sino que al final estamos participando, un país del primer mundo, de forma no voluntaria quizá, en hacer una estancia a las redes criminales, en hacer un paso, un tránsito y en formar parte de ese engaño y al final de torturar vidas, ¿no?, de las niñas y de las mujeres, que después trabajar en la recuperación emocional es algo infinito, es algo muy traumático, es algo que no se cierra una fórmula matemática, que es un camino muy, muy débil, que tiene muchos baches, muchos altibajos. Y entonces, por un lado, estamos ahí intensamente con un trabajo de protección a estas mujeres que recibimos, fruto de nuestro trabajo continuado con la Fuerza y Cuerpo de Seguridad del Estado. Y por otro lado, estoy muy, muy, muy implicada en todo lo que es el cambio sistémico. Pienso que tener un escenario así, un foro de este calibre, darnos cuenta desde la perspectiva, al final, desde el sector privado, de que hay que hacer algo por este cambio sistémico, me alucina. Creo firmemente en la prevención, en la concienciación y la sensibilización de verdad, en que la comunicación tiene que ser muy, muy clara, en que hay que mandar un mensaje real, no estamos inventando absolutamente nada. No concentrarnos en las estadísticas, ni muchísimo menos, sino concentrarnos en que cada vida lleva una T de trauma mayúscula y muy en negrita, que después es muy complicado borrarla y dejar que no te huelle, ¿no?, para el resto de tu camino vital. Entonces ahí estoy, bastante preocupada, pero a la vez hoy feliz con que se generen este tipo de alianzas con los que estamos en el terreno, que al final somos voz autorizada de estas mujeres y de estas niñas, y por otro lado la conciencia del sector privado para remover al final a los poderes públicos. España tiene falta de la normativa jurídica del delito de la trata, que no significa que con eso se acabará el delito, ni mucho menos, pero nos acompañaría mucho más a mitigarlo y sobre todo apoyarnos en que la suma de todos nos va a hacer muchísimo más exitoso el resultado, seguro, eso es seguro. Tenemos que seguir luchando. En estos 10 años de historia de trabajo intenso contra esta lucha hemos liberado emocionalmente a 678 mujeres y niñas de lo que es el delito de la trata de seres humanos en todas sus modalidades. Porque sí que es cierto que el matrimonio forzoso va ligado a la explotación sexual y va ligado a su vez después a lo que supone el secuestro una vez que eres madre dentro de ese matrimonio forzoso. Entonces, muchas veces las modalidades de la trata van sumadas, no son distintas, sino que se alimentan las unas a las otras. Entonces no las podemos separar. Y creo que la mirada apreciativa al final de generar este tipo de encuentros con especialistas, con personas que estamos muy sensibilizadas y concienciadas con que tenemos que mirar al futuro por ellas y para ellas, y tenemos que ser los mejores cooperantes de los caminos de estas niñas y de estas mujeres. Y por otro lado, me decías, Amy, que pienso sobre esta idea, ¿no? Creo que un poco que te he contestado. Estoy emocionada con que esto surja. Estoy emocionada con participar y pertenecer a este camino. Creo que hay que tener una misma mirada hacia todo el mundo. Estamos ante un delito transnacional, no es un delito que se reparta por continentes, sino que es un delito que engloba a todo el mundo, que repercute a todo el mundo y que todos tenemos que participar de forma comunitaria. Todos tenemos que tener un mismo origen y un mismo fin. Obviamente teniendo conciencia de que ahí interviene la cultura, interviene la educación, interviene la economía, intervienen los conflictos políticos, intervienen las razones humanitarias de cada uno de los contextos en donde nos movamos. Pero sí que es cierto que no existe ahora mismo así ningún foro de este calibre en España. Llevo 20 años trabajando en el mundo social, sobre todo en esta lucha. Que hoy aquí se celebre algo así, pienso que sonará mucho y que al final la idea va a tener un buen destino, porque si nos unimos todos cambiaremos de verdad el sistema.
Gracias y gracias por tu trabajo. Lara, early in your career, you had experience working with a victim of child marriage, working closely with a woman named Rani. India has one of the highest, or has the highest number of child brides in the world. And this was in India, or she was Indian. Can you tell us a little bit about her story and what you came to think about, what sort of education could change the environment that she was in?
Yes, so first, thank you very much to the Roca Village for inviting us and for being an alliance of UNICEF working against the child marriage. So we were able to escape 250 girls in Jordan from the child marriage together, and thanks to education and to communication and working with community, religious leaders, but also with the girls and with the families. So I wanted to say this first. Then I'm going to the case of Rani. Rani was a child, really a child. I was not able to know exactly what age was her. She came to work with me in India. I was working in India in a disaster facing a project. So she came to work with me with her sister-in-law. She came with her sister-in-law because she was married when she was very young. And she was, at the beginning, she didn't talk to me because she was not able to speak English, but also she was very shy. But little by little, I started to find a way to understand, like looking, I mean, she was very clever, so she learned immediately even Spanish, not only English. She was able to have some words in Spanish. And I was understanding from her that she was in the house of the husband, and her mother-in-law was hitting her, abusing her every day. So she was coming to work because she was forced to bring money for the family. But when the only place to be safe for her, it was my house. It was my place, because once she left my house, she went back to her husband's house, and she was suffering for I cannot imagine what kind of things, but because I was not able to understand exactly what was the situation. Then one day she disappeared for a while, and I came to know that she was pregnant, so the family just close the door and keep her inside. So I fight in order to make her come back to my place to work with me, and I got it for a while. But finally, I needed to leave India because in humanitarian work we change the places quite often, and I was not able to keep her safe later. So for me, it was something like I left someone behind me without the capability to help her. So when I heard Nada, well, it's very difficult for me to speak behind her because she really is a fighter, and I could not do everything I mean, I was not able to make her escape for that situation. The situation in India is one of the worst in the world because girls, in the case of India, are paying dowry for being married. It's not that they are getting money for being married. They need to pay. That means that to have a girl in India is horrible. So families don't want to have girls. So I was working in many communities, more than 100 communities. We conducted a survey at the beginning, and we got a number of girls getting born. And when we were conducting the survey 1 year later, the number of girls were reduced a lot because they killed them. They don't want the girls because they need to pay by then. They pay by then to put them in a child marriage in the early ages, and then they go to the family of the husband, and they suffer from every kind of abuse, violence, and everything. And it's something very related to, as we were discussing yesterday, that culture is not an excuse, but culture is used to maintain the situation. So Rani was not able to go to school. She didn't know, she didn't have the capabilities, not the capabilities, the tools to flee as you were able to you were so scared that you have the power to flee the situation, but in the case of Rani, was not like that. And the thing is, she understood that it's the only life she could have. She was not able to understand that she had other opportunities. So in the case of, I think in the case of this situation of these girls, education is very important, but education not talking about math, to study mathematics or language, is to educate girls to have critical thoughts in order to have the power to escape for the situation. But you need to work with the community, so you need to change the system, as Begonia said, and to work with the community leaders, with the religious leaders, but with government, we need a law. We will be listening to Paisa later. We need law, but we need the laws to fulfill. And I think going back to the question of what can we do, private sector, what can do, there are many companies, probably there are people here conducted companies with and business in different parts of the world. You need to realize that the situation is there, that you work with workers living in a communities suffering from this kind of the situation. But it's also important to invest money in education, in cultural and religious changes, and also to mobilize the society in order to make a deal with this issue. We could not stop. We need to stop this right now. We should. Child marriage should be ended in 2030, and we are late. We should be 20 more. 20 times quicker in order to finish the child marriage.
Thank you. Nada, can you talk a little bit about education the education programs that you organize and where you've seen the success.
Yes, so education is the key to break the circle of poverty, of economical problems, and as well as break the circle of child marriage. In NATO Foundation, before NATO Foundation, my family were very angry at me. My mom, at a point, she abandoned me. She said, "You're not my daughter anymore." They were very angry because I get it. They are guilty, but they are victim at the same time. It took time with the help of my uncle to change their view through child marriage and instead to see the investment on the girls' education. It took time. It took about 2 years. But now my family are my biggest supporters. None of my younger sisters are married. I come from a family of 10 children, and none of my younger sisters are married because all I needed to do is to change their mindset. Yes, poverty increases the number of child marriage. Yes, culture and religions as well, they are excuses as well, and they might be a number of increasing the child marriage, but it's all about education. I know poor people would actually fight the poverty, but not sell their daughters under the name of marriage. And that's why we, in NATO Foundation, we had 3 programs. It was to educate and give a free English language for 600 girls in Yemen, as well as a social media awareness program. And also, we saved almost 64 girls from child marriage and domestic violence. And NATO Foundation won a prize as well in London. And that's why we thought about moving the same experience from Yemen into the UK, because there's many girls come from different countries. They don't know that the law protects them from child marriage. In fact, we need to educate the change makers. We rely all our life on the change makers, and they do not know the simple thing, which is criminalizing a crime like that. So we need to educate everybody. How can you, as an individual, help on this? It's by educating yourself. This is going to help us to, as Lara said, will help us to make ending child marriage process faster, because you educate yourself, you help us to make less responsibility on us, educate the people around you. Know that investing in the next generation, which is the girls, it's investing on the, what is it going to look like in the future? How do you expect from a child to raise the next generation? And you expect us to be developed each year when our mothers are children. My mother was 14 years old. She was a child. Her mother was a child. They survived from it, but many girls die because of giving birth, and as well, first day of wedding, they died during that. So we need to educate the parents and the girls themselves. Many girls, like you said, she thought she was in love. But where was the parents' responsibility here? It's so easy to brainwash the girls. When she's 16, she tells you, "I'm in love, I want to get married." Then as a parent, you should do your role in here by educating yourself and educating her that marriage will be the last thing. You have to focus in your education first. So, of course, education comes first. And we need more programs to spread awareness. We know the consequences of using a mobile phone while driving more than what's the consequences of child marriage. And this is very sad. Of course, you need to know the consequence of using a mobile phone while driving, but as well as ending child marriage, and how is it going to affect you and affect your economy, affect the people around you.
Yeah, there are a lot of different places to hit. There are a lot of different layers of societies that need to be, that need more education. And Begoña, ¿tú piensas que más educación para todos, no solo las comunidades en riesgo, vulnerables, es la clave para generar un cambio en la sociedad? ¿Cuáles son tus métodos de enseñanza? Cuéntanos sobre tus clubs de concienciación y cómo el sector privado puede apoyarte.
Estupendo. Yo creo que bueno, lo que decía Nada hoy, es importante, ¿no? A ver, hay que trazar la educación formal desde diferentes estadios. Esta es una forma correcta, al final, de generar un impacto directo en las familias más vulnerables o en las familias que tienen un ecosistema más inestable o menos forjado, pero también, al final, hay que incidir en la educación en otros estadios. ¿Qué significa esto? Por ejemplo, el relato real es que hay que contar la verdad. ¿Cómo se cuenta la verdad? Pues acercándonos al final a los sistemas privados, a las compañías, a las grandes entidades, entes, al final personalidades jurídicas que tienen poder también de cambio, ¿no? Lo que estamos haciendo hoy, un ejemplo. Es un ejemplo claro y evidente de concienciación, sensibilización y de comunicación clara. Yo pienso que ahí es un panel, al final, de captación de que las personas que no saben lo que está pasando se conecten con el problema, con el delito, con esta lacra. Y al final se alíen a esta lucha, ¿no? Después, por otro lado, otra parte de la educación formal, ¿no? que también, al final, cala en la sensibilización y en la concienciación, en lo que nosotros hacemos, a través de diferentes modalidades. Una de ellas es la teleformación, a través de píldoras de formación en un nivel no avanzado, sino en un nivel básico, de contarle a las personas, a la sociedad, al final, a las que participamos en el día a día, los ciudadanos, qué pasa con este delito, cuáles son sus modalidades, cuál es el relato estadístico, qué podemos hacer para cambiar, qué podemos hacer para participar, cómo detectamos situaciones informales. España tiene ahora mismo trazado una modalidad a las entidades especialistas como nosotros, por ejemplo, de darle a conocer a los ciudadanos de España y de Europa un formato de detección. Nosotros lo hacemos a través de esas píldoras informativas y a la vez formativas a las compañías, a las grandes compañías, a las compañías más pequeñas y a las más medianas. Y después, por otro lado, también acercarnos a través de lo que está pasando en una simulación real. No es nada más que un club a través de una unidad móvil que va pasando por toda España, que simula de forma inmersiva, qué es lo que sufre una superviviente de este delito. ¿Qué es lo que sufre una superviviente cuando está siendo abusada en cualquiera de sus modalidades? Bien el matrimonio forzoso, que no estoy contrayendo un matrimonio de forma voluntaria, sino que hay alguien, sobre todo mis padres, que me han forzado a generar este matrimonio. Después, por otro lado, simula también lo que vive una mujer, una superviviente, una víctima, cuando está siendo explotada sexualmente. También hay un monográfico de qué pasa cuando estamos ante una mujer víctima que ha sufrido, una mujer o niña, siempre hablo de mujer, incluyendo niña, una extracción, por ejemplo, de órgano, que es otra modalidad de la trata, o también cuando estamos ante una situación de explotación laboral. Que casi todas, como os digo, me gustaría que se os quedara muy en el tintero, que cuando estamos hablando de matrimonio forzoso siempre va sumado a la explotación sexual, física y a la violencia psicológica. Entonces, ¿qué hacemos? Nosotros, a través de este canal, lo que generamos es el impacto real. Ver en directo qué sufre una mujer en un club que simula eso. Simplemente es un club que va moviéndose por España, es totalmente inmersivo y es impactante porque al final empatizas con la situación, pisas esa tierra y sientes lo que ellas sienten, simplemente dolor, trauma, máximo expresión de lo que es la violencia en todas sus vertientes. Creo que hay que seguir sumándose. Al final es un momento también en el que las compañías, entre las grandes empresas y que las personas se sumen a estas tres oportunidades, opciones. Betania es una entidad acreditada especialista por el Gobierno de España a través de un Real Decreto que nos da ese amparo de que al final somos especialistas para trabajar en el cambio, ¿no? No solo en la protección, sino también en el cambio. Y que las modalidades que aquí os estoy comentando son, pues expresan al final una posibilidad de que si todos nos sumamos a estas tres opciones de formación, de sensibilización, de concienciación y sobre todo de prevención, estaremos obviamente también volviendo a lo mismo, ¿no? A cambiar el sistema, a producir un zarandeo de los poderes públicos y al final a a que las mujeres y niñas no sufran violencia en ninguna de sus modalidades, incluyendo en este caso lo máxima, que en el día de hoy celebramos la lucha contra el matrimonio forzoso infantil.
Gracias. I think one last question on this panel for Lara. School and education is not just about learning. It can be a safe place for boys and girls at risk. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, actually, as I was explaining before about running, the fact that they can leave their houses is giving them an opportunity to be safe, not stop suffering from violence. So the place to go to somewhere to go to school is ensuring at least an hours for them to be safe. So that's why it's very important. So from UNICEF, we work in communities. We work in different levels, as Begoña explained. So we work at government level because we used to have big programs with government in order to legislate, to change their politics, but we work at the community level. So investing in schools, not only schools, but also like places for them to join, to talk about with other girls, to share the experience are very important, because one of the things that it happens to them is that they think they cannot have any other life because they haven't seen something different, but the fact that they can go to a place, they can talk, they can share the experience, and maybe to hear someone saying, no, this is unjust, we should change that, is giving them an opportunities. And yes, it's the time to be safe, it's the time to understand that you have other opportunities, and it's the time to start thinking by yourself, because when you go back to the house, when you go back to the husband's house, you start being in a situation where you are totally, I mean, they put you like in a cupboard, which you cannot have, you don't have any word, you don't have any decision, you cannot say anything, so you need to flee for that place, and school definitely is one of the better places to do that.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you for your fabulous insight and your work. Thank you. Thanks again to the panel, and at this point we'd like to show you a brief video from UNICEF. Another person who is deeply committed to efforts to end child marriage is Chantal Coueri, who is the Chief Culture Officer at the Bicester Collection. Chantal is a lawyer by training and a humanitarian by calling. She began her journey volunteering with UNESCO. She's the founder and CEO of Brides Do Good, which facilitates the sale of pre-loved wedding dresses to raise awareness and funds in a bid to end child marriage. Chantal.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. 1,200 girls have been forced into marriage since we started this morning. 1,200 futures in just 60 minutes stolen. Every 3 seconds, you heard it from Najat, a girl is forced into marriage. She's robbed from her childhood, she's robbed from her future, from her dreams. The time to act is now. Governments around the world have committed to end child marriage by 2030 through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. 193 countries have signed the pledge, but at the current rate, and we have 6 years to go, we will not make it. If we don't act now, 130 million girls, more girls, will be married off by 2030. Sadly, conflict and wars are only making this worse. In fact, girls in conflict zones face a 20% higher risk of being increased violence and subjected to child marriage. The consequences are devastating for girls and for communities. Number one, economically, it is set to cost the developing countries trillions of dollars in 2030. Number two, socially, it deepens gender inequality. Number three, culturally, it traps communities in harmful tradition. Number four, legally, 100 million girls lack protection from child marriage, with loopholes that, like parental or judicial consent. And finally, health-wise, it causes early pregnancies, violence, and mortality. Ending child marriage is a moral imperative, and it requires action from all of us, governments, private sector, communities, all together creating lasting systemic change. Children are the present. Children are the future of the communities our businesses rely on. And there cannot be sustainable growth if we don't protect children. And you heard that from Najat earlier on. I want to specifically talk to you about the private sector and how it can drive meaningful change. So, as Chief Culture Officer of the Bicester Collection and as the founder of Brides Do Good, I know that when the private and public sector unite in purpose, they have the power to drive that change. When we collaborate, when we pool our resources, we can build a world where every child is safe, where every child is empowered, and where every child is protected from violence and exploitation. At the Bicester Collection, you heard it from Elena, we are committed to unlocking the future of children locally and globally. That's why we are partnering with the United Nations so that we can amplify awareness and drive tangible action towards ending violence against children. We've mapped out a clear roadmap for change, and this includes powerful initiatives like this think tanks, future action papers, and also integrated campaign designated to create a global impact. Our efforts are more than just conversation. They are really about shaping a future where children are protected, where they have a safe space, and where real steps to raise awareness and action are possible. Here is another example that I want to give you about the power of the private and public sector working together. In 2016, as Amy said, I founded Brides Do Good, a social enterprise with one vision: to end child marriage through the sale of donated and pre-loved wedding dresses. By partnering with brands that truly care, such as actually a Spanish brand, Pronovias, and receiving donations from brides from all over the world, we can create a lasting impact. We can turn something symbolic of one day into a long-term change. Through these sales, we fund programs in different parts of the world, working with organizations such as UNICEF, Plan International, so that we can keep girls in school and empower them to voice themselves. Brides Do Good was born from my deep belief that fashion is more than an expression of creativity. It's a tool for transformation. It's a tool to drive social change. But also, it was born from a personal point of view. With my Lebanese and African heritage, I grew up in a world that taught me that the power of resilience and the power of community. And I was fortunate because I had doors opened for me that many girls in my region did not have. And I've made it my commitment to ensure that those doors are open to many girls around the world. This understanding, combined with the knowledge that the global wedding industry, an industry that is worth $300 billion, can inspire change. I knew the powerful industry that it can represent and the powerful change that it can do to transforming girls' lives. At Brides Do Good, we are also taking advocacy as part of our mission. In fact, in April 2022, alongside different organizations in the UK, like ICRO, like Girls Not Bride, we successfully campaigned to change the legal age of marriage in England from 16 to 18. This was a landmark achievement in protecting vulnerable girls. In fact, the law became into effect in February 23, and it criminalizes any form of marriages, be it with parental consent or without. This step truly ensures that girls below 18 cannot be forced into marriage. And whether through legally binding ceremonies or non-legally recognized cultural practices. As part of this campaign, I had the privilege of meeting an incredible woman, Paisy Mahmoud. Her story deeply moved me. Paisy was forced into marriage at age 16, and she endured trauma of a life she didn't choose. She transformed her suffering into a powerful force for change. Her voice became a driving force behind the campaign to raise the age, the minimum age of marriage in England. Over 3 years, her courage, her determination, her relentless advocacy were pivotal in this historic victory. Meeting her was quite a, and you will meet her, by the way. I'm going to give her the stage shortly. But as you listen to Paisley's story, I want you to really reflect on the urgency of this moment. The time to act is not tomorrow. The time to act is now. If we take bold, decisive steps today, we can end child marriage in our lifetime. It is within our reach. Thank you very much, and it gives me a great honor and pleasure to introduce you to Paisley Mahmood.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Chantal, for such a warm welcome. It's my pleasure to join you this morning. You've heard a lot of figures. I'm not going to throw many more at you. I'm just going to say one figure. Amy started this morning by saying that 640 million girls alive today were married before the age of 18, and I am one of those girls. And I know you're going to hear a lot about the impact of child marriage. I want to paint a picture to you all so that you can really visualize it for yourselves. Everyone in this room has been 16 at some point in their life. And when I talk about my experience, I really want you to imagine yourself when you were 16. Put yourself in my shoes for a moment so this really becomes real for you. So in my family, I am one of 5 girls. I'm the second youngest. And I can say from a really young age, I knew that being born a girl was a burden for my family. I was always told that I had to be quiet, to be small, not to shame my family. And in the end, somehow, even though my parents chose my fate, I still ended up shaming them by no action of mine. So I don't want to tell you the entire story. I'll cut it short, but I do actually have a TED Talk where I talk in detail about my experience if you want to watch it. I'll give you trigger warning. It's very heavy, but it's not an issue that I think we need to walk around and dance around. It is serious. It is real. So I'm going to tell it to you in that way. When I was 16 years old, I was what I would say just a normal teenager. I loved music. I was rebellious, as you are at 16. You know, I was dealing with a lot inside, but I didn't really have the room to express much. So I was living in London with my family. And from one day to the next, from being a 16-year-old child, going into college, being very excited about choosing my own clothes, my life turned upside down when my parents told me that there was somebody who they wanted me to marry. And I want you to picture yourself at 16. You love your parents. You would do anything to please your parents. You know you can't say no. So, of course, in that instance, I said to my mom and dad that I would do whatever they wanted to. I didn't have the courage, like you don't at 16, to say to them, to stand up to them and say, that's not what I want for my future. I didn't even have the words. I knew I didn't want to get married, but it's not something I could have communicated. So my wedding happened very quickly. You saw a video of a young girl. That was literally my life. I was taken around shops in London. None of this happened in private. This happened very publicly. I was taken to shops. I was trying on wedding dresses. My mother was showing me all of this jewelry to buy, things that she was choosing, you know, furniture for my house. Everything happened very openly. And it probably won't shock you, or it may, when I say nobody that I came into contact with during this time, the wedding planning, the cake, the dress, the jewelry, everything, nobody ever thought there was something wrong with this picture. I was, you know, very young, visually looked very young. I was very small. My frame was quite small. So actually, when I was trying on these dresses, none of them even fitted me. And everything was really big on me. But still, no one's thought that this was a strange picture. No one ever said anything. No one ever asked any questions. And I don't want to dive too much into that, but there was definitely a little bit of cultural relativism where people didn't want to question. People literally didn't see me. They put a barrier between me, a victim, a child, and their own unconscious bias. So fast forward to my wedding day. I met my husband once before I married him. And when I say I met, my parents sat me in a room with him. And they said to me they didn't want me to speak to him or to look at him because they didn't want him to think that I was a confident, outgoing girl. They wanted him to see me as a shy, good girl, a good bride that was going to follow his instructions and his orders and not shame them in any way. So my wedding happened. I had an Islamic ceremony, first of all, in my parents' home. And this ceremony took place in Arabic, a language I don't speak, but still the imam, the people in the room, nobody questioned that. I then had a registered marriage, and this happened in a registry office where an English person in London conducted this. Again, no questions asked. And from the first night, my marriage, so to speak, was abusive. My husband was older than me, so automatically there was a power dynamic. And about 2 months after the night I was married, I became pregnant. So I was 16, a child, and I was carrying a child. I didn't know how that had happened. When I say that, what I mean is I didn't have sex education. So I didn't know how I even became pregnant, although I engaged in forced sex with my husband. My mom actually knew that I was pregnant before I knew. And when I went to the family GP, the doctor, the nurse said to me that next time, if you don't want to be pregnant, you should use contraception. Again, this was something completely unbeknown to me. I didn't know what contraception was. And I made it very clear to her I didn't want to be pregnant. My husband forced me into having sex. But her reaction was victim blaming, and she told me, next time, think about using protection. And so at 16, I was faced with, I guess, an ultimatum. It was either I stay in that marriage and really lose my freedom, because once I had a baby, that was it for me. I couldn't ever leave. But I knew someday I will leave this man somehow. And even though I didn't really know what I was doing, I chose to have an abortion. And I went through that process in London without really understanding. I was put to sleep, and needless to say, my baby was aborted. For me, this was the best decision of my life, and I'm so glad that I was in a country that allowed that to happen safely, which is not something a lot of girls have access to, especially when they are child brides. I see the clock is ticking, so I'm going to tell you about how I left my child marriage. I was married for 2 years. My marriage was abusive the entire time. I didn't have access to education as I wanted to, even though I lived in London. But whenever my husband wanted to, he would take me out of college and I would have to be a housewife. And I left my marriage 2 years after because my sister, who was also a child bride, she left her marriage. And as a result of her leaving her child marriage, my sister was murdered by community members. And this is the fate of many child brides. The girl doesn't leave alive. She doesn't have a future. This is her life. And the only way I left is because my sister lost her life. So really, for me, the thing I want to leave you with, next time you hear the words child marriage, this is the reality I want you to think about. The words are digestible when we say child and marriage. Somehow it feels, it's a marriage, it's a child. But what we're really talking about is, I would say, institutionalized rape. We're talking about emotional, psychological, physical harm every single day. On the inside, you're a child. On the outside, you're somebody's wife. These are not responsibilities for a child to bear. And you're probably thinking, what can I do about this? We'll talk about this more later, but every room I go into, all I ask of you is to understand and take away that you all play a role in this. We say 640 million girls. That's a lot of girls who don't have access to their rights, their futures, their childhoods completely taken away from them. I stand here before you as one of the many girls who wish they could have a voice. I never ever imagined my life would turn into this. But I am one of the very few girls who have the opportunity to rebuild my life, because once you're in a child marriage, you don't leave that marriage. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And the TED Talk, for those of you who have the stomach for it, is really good to see. I think the fact that Paisy was let down not just by her family, but by all of those adults who could have raised questions or called a hotline. I mean, I think this is one of the areas where a call to action can be effective. And I think that the reason that many people don't think about this problem very much is because they consider that it happens in the mountains of Kurdistan, that it happens far away in a place we will never visit. But in fact, as Paisy reminds us, it's on our doorstep. Matrimonio infantil incluye coacción, a menudo la violencia, y de acuerdo con UNICEF, nos llevará 300 años para ponerle fin a ese problema. That's 300 years, according to UNICEF, for child marriage to be ended. So let's talk about the laws. What do they say? And to what extent can they protect girls? I'm going to introduce you to our final panel. Ingeborg Brenes traveled here from Norway, and she was the head of UNICEF. She was the Secretary General, of the National Commission of UNESCO before joining UNESCO headquarters, where she served as a special advisor on women and gender. She's been involved in very many organizations throughout her lifetime and written several books. But in short, I would say that Ingeborg has been a tireless campaigner for peace. Ingeborg. Oh, wait. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Right. We need one more chair. One more chair. No, Ingeborg, where you are is perfect. And Hermine Kembo is a magistrate from Cameroon. She's special rapporteur on child marriage and other harmful practices, and also does a lot of work for Burkina Faso, for Ghana, Gambia, Ethiopia, Niger. She's also written books. Hermine has written about human rights in Africa, smuggling, and human trafficking. Christina Gaillac is a member of Global Women Leaders Voices. She was, she was the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations for Public Information. For the government of Spain, she was Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs. I mean, Christina has worn more hats than I could possibly talk about in this short time. She's basically a very big advocate for equality and for inclusion. And Paisy. I don't need to really say too much more. But I think one thing that Paisy has said that we need to remember today is that it's the world that suffers when so many millions of girls are effectively taken out of commission, because these are people who could change the world, who have the power, as any child potentially does, to change the world. So Paisley, let's talk. I want to get into the campaign that you and Chantal were part of that led to the changing of the marriage age in England. You said a lot of people really didn't want, a lot of legislators simply didn't believe it was a problem or didn't want to be engaged. Can you talk about that and talk about how you see next steps in terms of legal protection for girls?
Sure. So when I first started campaigning in this area and we were talking to decision makers and the public about the age of marriage and the fact that child marriage was happening in the UK, we were met with a lot of resistance because people just simply couldn't digest that this was an issue that was happening on their doorsteps. I mean, the UK is very good at telling countries like Pakistan and other places in the world that they have these issues and they need to change their laws. But actually, when it came to our own laws, we couldn't admit that this was happening. And so I think the issue had to be made very real for them. So a lot of my advocacy involved really sharing how this happened right in front of our community, right in front of my school teachers and really the entire city who can see these things in plain sight. So I think actually putting a face to the issue really helped. The organization I work at, we do also work with a lot of survivors who share their stories anonymously. And I think there's something really powerful about hearing from people firsthand about how this impacts them and how this has really harmed them. So a lot of it really involved educating decision makers. Believe it or not, at the time, our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was quite surprised that the legal age was 16. That shocked me because obviously you would imagine that people in such positions would be aware of such harms that people are being exposed to. And so a lot of our campaigning was a lot of engagement with the public and making sure that people just removed this bias of, it's very easy for people to say, I don't think it happens here. And in their mind, it's happening somewhere really far away. Therefore, it's hard to connect with the issue. But that's why I say the moment we remove this barrier and actually see this as, this is rooted in gender inequality. This is rooted in patriarchal norms that are prevalent in every part of society, regardless of your geographical context. It's happening all around you. To what scale, we do not know. And this was part of the problem. We couldn't say this many girls are getting married because at the time when we looked at marriage, we were looking at official statistics. But there are marriages happening in ceremonies that are traditional, that are customary, that are religious. And these numbers don't reflect the full picture because they're not recorded anywhere. But the harm is just as real. When a girl goes through a customary marriage, she is still taking on the full responsibilities of becoming a wife just like this. So a lot of educating, a lot of conversations and just making space for these difficult conversations. It is difficult, and I think it was part of the challenge we faced. People just could not touch the issue. It was too much.
Hermine, the laws are, as Paisley points out, one aspect of the landscape, but there are other forms of, other ways in which children enter into marriage. What is the situation in the countries you work with in Africa? Where are things on track and where does more need to be done?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I think the situation is at various points. There are some countries which are far more advanced than others. And in terms of the legislative landscape, as she has pointed out, I think we should not just be happy that change happened in the normative framework. We should also be looking at the substantive change that happens in the normative setting, because you may have countries which adopt the minimum age of marriage as 18, but you still have to look keenly what is said in the law, because the law can also make provision for exception, which wipe off the protection that is being afforded to girls. This is one part of this is one kind of situation. And this situation, namely, I can give an example of a country which exemplified this. The example of Nigeria with the incorporation of the Child Rights Act, because in Nigeria you have 36 federated states, and the legislation on the personal status is vested in the federated state, and in the ways in which all 36 states have incorporated the child rights is different. So you cannot say that in Nigeria as of now you have a common ground as to what is the minimum age for marriage, because in one state you have the age 18. In other states, you just have an open frame. So even in the legislative, we need to go and see what has exactly happened as change. That's the first point. On the other issue, I think one of the issue because she talked about policies makers not being aware of what is even the issue. And these issues are real, and even you have some policies makers who are themselves authors of child marriage, who marry children, and everybody, as she said, attend the marriage, and nobody questions. This is also an issue, and we've been talking of the private sector being agent of change here. I think the first step for each private sector here is to have a policy whereby the staff is vetted as to whether or not they are engaged in a child marriage or not. That is the simple step that can be taken. They should view their staff not only as individual, but as individual connected to societies, and they should view them as members of communities, members of communities where things happen, and they should be mindful of that link between their staff and the community. I think the first entry point here is to have a company policy whereby it is a commitment for all staff members not to engage into child. This is the first simple. It seems simple, but it is far-reaching. This is, and the second point, I want to indulge in the issue of private. So because for me that is key. For me that is key, because where people go and have their daily bread, that is so important to them. And when you push the change to that direction, that can make an impact. And on that is how women. How companies engage in framing the women environment for work, because if you see women just as only staff, not as people connected to the community, having responsibilities in their communities, you tend to first not to think about their specific needs. That means that when a woman goes to work, she has to leave the children her children aside, and leaving the children aside creates another layer of difficulties, and creates opportunities for that woman to let her child go to marriage. That is also an issue. So the issue of vetting the personnel, the issue of creating an enabling environment for women, but also the issue of wages, because it is also an issue of poverty. Giving children to marriage is also an issue of poverty. You said it clearly. It's letting go a mouth, because a mouth is a burden. That is key. That is something which we need to. It's small things that happen, and we all are. We don't think it's a problem. We don't see it as a problem. I mean, it's educating our own self, opening our eyes of what is happening around us, what is happening far away. So I think, thank you.
Thank you. Ingeborg, I think you know where I'm turning this, but education is important, laws are important, changing culture is important, and art is a tool. And you had a story about an experience you had in Pakistan with an exhibit that you saw created, that you helped along, and I think it tells a story that people here might want to hear.
Thank you. Allow me first to express my appreciation of being with you here when the world is dark and we have wars, even in Europe, we have genocides, we have threats of climate and natural disaster, even threats of use of nuclear arms. We need to be together to share our concerns and to share also aspirations and hope. And I'm reminded of Leonard Cohen's wonderful song, Anthem, where he sings, "There is a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in." And I honestly think that you are such a crack that we will be enlightened by. So thank you for these efforts. I was heading UNESCO's office in Islamabad, Pakistan, and I was also having been the responsible person in UNESCO for gender equality. And after the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, we were all working to find ways for creating gender equality, but mostly it was putting emphasis on the status of women and how could we reach that level of a better status for women. But we were thinking that without the involvement of men, we would not be able to achieve this. So I was sitting in my office late nights and thinking, how can I get boys and men in Pakistan to be involved in changing the status of women? So I thought, who are the change agents? And I was thinking, maybe it is the students of arts and the students of journalism. So I went with some colleagues to different universities, put them to work on this issue. How can you, boys and men, contribute to gender equality? And they wrote poems, they wrote essays, they were drawing, they took photos, and it became very, very creative. So I was thinking we have to expose this somehow. So I invited them to Islamabad to exhibit all they had done. And the Minister of the Status of Women in Pakistan was very proud and got a lot of attention on this. And I had friends in New York, and it was an upcoming meeting of the Commission on the Status of Women. So I was calling New York and said, would you want to have an exhibition in New York on how boys and men can contribute to gender equality? And said, wow, are you doing this in Pakistan? So yes, they said, we have space. Pakistan Airlines took the exhibition, took the Minister of the Status of Women to New York. And it was exposed there and discussed, and it became a model from a country where you didn't expect this from. So many countries were inspired, but still, I mean, that was one pilot project. And when we speak about how can the private sector and the public sector or the UN work together, it is to make these pilots broader so that they can reach more people. And today, of course, when we are in such a dark situation, I am happy to share with you a little experience also from UNESCO, you know, the UN Organization for Education, Science, Culture, and Communication. And in the period leading up to the fall of the wall and the end of the last Cold War, we were working on a project called the Culture of Peace. How can we move our reflection, our thinking from this competition to more cooperation? And we made a broad program that was accepted by the whole of the UN system, and we went into the new year 2000, which was made the International Year for a Culture of Peace, with the hope that we should be able to change the minds of women and men. You know, the entrance words to UNESCO's constitution says that since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that defenses for peace must be constructed. That is a huge educational task, and it's very different from military defense.
Thank you.
I just want to say one more thing, and I don't know if you know how much money the world is putting into the military, $2.4 billion per year. If you take 8 days of the military budget, you can give free quality education for 12 years to every boy and girl in the world. We have to change our priorities.
Thank you, Ingeborg. Thank you very much. Christina, we're here today to put an give impetus and urgency to the campaign to end child marriage, but this is against a backdrop of a pattern of regression in terms of women's rights that you've been observing. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I cannot say I'll be pleased to explain what is the current situation, but I'm extremely pleased to be here with you. But let's take a couple of moments in recent history. And Ingeborg mentioned it, in 1995, very soon 30 years, we had this extraordinary moment of all the countries in the world meeting in Beijing and agreeing the Beijing Action Plan for basically equality and women's rights. You will recall the moment when Hillary Clinton said, human rights are women's rights. Women's rights are human rights. A few years after, in 2015, I was then working as Under-Secretary General at the UN, we had an immense moment, which was the agreement of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. We've seen what they mean and what they strive for. And we all thought that, wow, you know, we are pushing big energy into addressing gender equality, women's rights, girls' rights. And still the figures didn't clap very well, because from Beijing 95 to the SDGs 2015, progress was very slow, very slow. We were really dragging on conflicts and how much women and girls were suffering. Remember the rapes in conflicts in the Balkans or in Rwanda. Although we had a proclamation of rape as a weapon of war that was fundamental in 98. Anyway, let's go to 2015, a good moment. What is happening now? We are in 2024, 6 years away from the SDGs. The SDG 5 says clearly, end child marriage, end genital mutilation. And still now, currently, the last UN Women report says that 1 out of 5 women have undergone child marriage. It was 1 out of 4 in 2003, so there is a slight progress, but we won't make it. On top of that, what is happening lately? And it's not that lately. It's in already a few years. We see two forces. The forces in the West of the extreme right movement populisms that basically when they enter into government, first things they do is close down women's rights offices, support for gender equality, etc. So that is one wave. We see it clearly. We see it including in the European Parliament. We had two forces which were far right. Now we have three groups, and they can shuffle a majority with the center right, if so they want. But we also have a group of like-minded, we call it like-minded, can I say a sort of an unholy coalition of member states at the United Nations that are always there to put language in the resolutions, in the Summit of the Future statement that will hold on women's rights and girls' rights. We saw it September when we had the Summit of the Future to give a push to the implementation of the SDGs, and when we saw the first draft, there were almost no mention on women's rights and gender equality and how to support women in conflict. And it was us, the civil society, global women leaders, colleagues, that were there pushing for more mentioning and more rights. We recovered a little bit, so the text in approved finally was a little bit better. But these two forces, far-right populisms in many countries in the West, and these unholy coalitions that in the name of tradition, in the name of religion, in the name of culture, in the name of protection, they hold back on women's rights and girls' rights. So this is extremely dangerous. Well, we just see it in the United States. 14 states have banned abortion after such extraordinary fight. And you mentioned how important it is to practice safe abortions in order to protect women's and girls' rights. So I think we have to be extremely clear, name it, a spade is a spade, and in this issue, no backwards should be allowed. And this has to be done through a good coalition, private sector, public sector, politicians, women's organizations, civil society organizations, men leading these. I think it is the only way, because we are at the edge. You know, with our vote, we influence lots of decisions that will come after. And I think we have to be very careful and very clear on what it implies, certain choices.
Yeah. It's, thank you. It's finding the allies. It's finding the men who can help to push the change. As Hermine was talking about, the tribal chieftains in Niger who are trying to help these women, and they're having pushback from society. So it's finding the people and the places where you can attach to whom you can attach and move this campaign forward to try to better protect girls. I think I need to wrap us up. There's so much more we'd love to talk about, but I'm conscious of the fact that everyone has somewhere to go. So thank you very much to all of you. And I need to invite Illustrissima Signora Maria Eugenia Gay onto the stage to make a few remarks, I believe.
Bien. Muy buenos días, estimadas autoridades, personalidades destacadas en la defensa de los derechos humanos, queridas amigas y amigos, señores y señoras. La verdad es que permítanme primero expresar mi sincero agradecimiento a mi querida amiga y directora de negocio de Value Retail España, Elena Fuguet, por impulsar esta emocionante iniciativa, vibrante. Yo creo que, bueno, pues este momento, ¿no?, de poder compartir esta realidad que nos está azotando en estos momentos de manera fuerte, ¿no?, en todo el panorama internacional, pues que requiere precisamente de estos momentos de encuentro, de reflexión tan necesario, ¿no? Bajo el título de Unlock Futures Think Tank, Protecting Children, Ending Child Marriage, ¿no?, organizado por la Roca Village y de Bicester Collection, y además en nuestra querida ciudad, Barcelona, que quiere ser un referente en derechos humanos, en la protección de los derechos de los más vulnerables y los más necesitados. Y realmente, pues, el hecho de ver hoy aquí a tantas mujeres, hombres comprometidos, implicados en esta lucha, que sin duda solo de manera unida, ¿no?, podremos combatir, pues me llena de satisfacción y realmente pues de orgullo de ver a tantas amigas aquí comprometidas. Es de destacar la encomiable labor que se lleva a cabo desde Bicester Collection, cuyo firme compromiso con el bienestar social se refleja a través del programa Do Good, que hace una labor extraordinaria, por la que quiero felicitarles, y que aborda los desafíos que enfrentan a las mujeres y a los niños, tanto a nivel local como global, centrándose en 3 áreas clave, ¿no?, las asociaciones benéficas, la defensa de derechos y la innovación. Y desde luego que se han puesto encima de la mesa puntos importantísimos que desde luego se han desarrollado con muchísima precisión, pero que son tan necesarios de desarrollar con la colaboración público-privada. El hecho de que la Administración esté en permanente contacto con las instituciones y organizaciones que se dedican a trabajar precisamente con estos colectivos de mujeres maltratadas, de niñas maltratadas, pues es fundamental para poder trabajar la prevención, la detección, la protección y, sobre todo, el acompañamiento para que puedan reinsertarse en su vida y en sus, digamos, quehaceres de lo que ha de ser una vida digna y llena y plena, ¿no? Y, por lo tanto, pues esta labor que hacemos todos y todas resulta fundamental. So it is an honor to conclude this forum, which has brought together some of the most experienced voices in the field of child protection. Women who I really admire, Cristina and all of you, who are dedicated leaders committed to the cause we are addressing today, protecting children from the tragic and inconceivable practices of child and forced marriage. This reality affects girls and young women, exposing them to violence, sexual abuse, and severely undermining their freedom and dignity. More than 2 decades ago, in 1995, the 4th World Conference on Women, Cristina mentioned that, alerted us to the various forms of exploitation and abuse that women face, including child and forced marriage. This remarks that we have been in this fight for many years, too many efforts dedicated to that. In this regard, it is essential to emphasize the value work that the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Violence Against Children, is doing with a comprehensive approach that includes promoting policies to safeguard the rights of girls, as well as programs that support education and health to transform millions of children's lives. However, the situation remains critical. Today, according to the UNICEF, over 750 million women were married before the age of 18. Hemos escuchado el testimonio desgarrador de Yasmín. La verdad es que es muy importante poder tener conocimiento de primera mano de esta realidad. Y cada año, más de 750 millones de mujeres, 12 million girls are forced into marriage before they reach adulthood. These alarming figures have prompted the inclusion of child and forced marriage eradication in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as they represent a significant obstacle to achieving gender equality and empowering women. Lo decía Cristina muy bien, 2 momentos importantísimos en la historia reciente. El momento de la Conferencia Mundial en Beijing y la Agenda 2030. Dos momentos en los que debemos sumarnos, los que debemos seguir luchando y siguiendo siendo capaces de abanderar esta defensa de los derechos humanos, porque sin duda que el 2030 está ya a la esquina y no podemos bajar ni perder ni un minuto de nuestro tiempo para esta lucha. Mahmoud, Nai, María, Kadiatu, Hadika, Shirin, entre tantas otras mujeres, son nombres de jóvenes que se han visto obligadas a contraer matrimonio, frustrando para siempre su inocencia y sus ilusiones de futuro. El matrimonio forzado, la mutilación genital femenina, los denominados crímenes de honor, lo decíamos, cultura, tradiciones, se mezclan en todo este execrable relato de delitos interminables que en estos momentos están siendo víctimas tantas y tantas niñas y mujeres. Execrables prácticas que constituyen una manifestación real que nos sucede en las puertas de nuestras casas y de nuestra ciudad, también en Barcelona, contra las mujeres y las niñas. Sin distinción geográfica, decíamos, ¿no?, en los países en los cuales nos hemos referido, pero también en Barcelona, y de los que tenemos conocimientos desde el Ayuntamiento de Barcelona, y que la labor que realizan desde los centros sociales, las trabajadoras sociales, cada día en nuestras calles, pues resulta fundamental precisamente para detectar estas situaciones. Pero que no hay distinción geográfica, no hay distinción social y no hay distinción económica ni cultural. Por ello, este encuentro debe servir como una plataforma para sensibilizar y concienciar sobre la existencia de una situación que constituye una verdadera emergencia global. Y desde el Ayuntamiento de Barcelona, Elena, pues queremos tenderos la mano y mostraros nuestra predisposición en trabajar conjuntamente, porque la protección integral de la infancia ante el matrimonio infantil y forzado exige de la implicación decidida tanto de los poderes públicos como de la ciudadanía en su conjunto, ya que la defensa de los derechos de quienes hoy representan el futuro y la esperanza de la sociedad es sin duda la única forma de preservar los valores que la consagraron en la Declaración Universal de los Derechos Humanos de 1948. Otro momento, hito universal que debemos tener presente, como en aquel momento Eleanor Roosevelt, esa mujer que abanderó precisamente esa redacción, esa ponencia de la Comisión de Derechos Humanos de la Declaración, preveyendo por primera vez en la historia a las mujeres como seres humanos auténticos, sujetos de derecho, y ya no como objetos de protección. Ese momento todavía no lo hemos superado. Mujeres, tantas mujeres que siguen siendo objetos a los cuales se tiene que predisponer, que disponer o realmente exponer, como decíamos, enfrente estos ataques tan indiscriminados que están sufriendo tantas de ellas. In this spirit, and guided by the Convention of the Rights of the Child of 1989, we must advocate for the implementation of truly comprehensive and courageous strategies to eradicate violence against minors. The values of education you have talked today, and equal opportunities for all, particularly for children, must be at the core of our actions. The Barcelona City Council stands ready to collaborate with other institutions to intensifying efforts and report possible cases of child and forced marriage in our city. In this context, I would like to highlight the protocol for the prevention and addressing of forced marriage in Catalonia from the Generalitat de Catalunya, with which we collaborate continuously. This protocol encompasses prevention, detection, care and recovery of victims, ensuring intervention by professional, local administrations, governments and specialized social entities. Y para finalizar, me gustaría también no olvidar y traer a colación una cita de la obra No acepto sobre el estudio y visibilización de los matrimonios forzados en España, que me ha parecido reveladora de esta realidad que viven muchas jóvenes y las que priva de libertad, y a la que hoy además Pazzi ha hecho cierta referencia y en la que no debemos olvidar una frase que a mí me resulta desgarradora por el significado que entraña, ¿no? Seguramente mis padres me rechazarán cuando manifieste que no me quiero casar. Confío en que con el paso del tiempo podamos reconciliarnos, porque efectivamente son los padres, nuestros seres sus seres más queridos, que las llevan precisamente a esta trágica situación. Unas palabras que representan el sentir de tantas mujeres que, conocedoras de sus derechos y en plena igualdad, luchan por ellos y por la defensa de su libertad. Una libertad escrita en mayúsculas, incluso ante el riesgo de perder en el intento algo tan preciado como es la familia. Muchísimas gracias, Elena. Thank you so much for your attending.
Thank you so much, Senora Gay. Thank you. So to wrap up now, I think there's a lot to digest. I personally am humbled by the work that all of you are doing in your various fields and the experiences that some of you have overcome. I think we've understood today that they're the rights of girls. There are girls that we need to have functioning happily in our society, but it's also the crime and the honor killings and the psychological and traumatic effects in communities where child marriage has disrupted families, and the girls who've set themselves on fire to try to escape their hell. I mean, they're just, the more you peel away at this story, the deeper the pain, the damage, and the harm to society. Of course, the girls first and foremost, but all of us. So I think there's also some irony that we've learned in this journey that Nada, for example, who wasn't recognized by her parents as an individual in her own right, is now supporting her family in Yemen. She sends back money to ensure that her younger siblings are fed. And she, of course, as she mentioned, has prevented her younger sisters from getting married. So there are victories, and I think what we hope our pledge can be out of this meeting is to take some of the weight off their shoulders, these warriors' shoulders, and help them move forward. So if you're moved to want to really be part of this solution, there's a QR code on every table, and it will, if you choose to make a donation, it will go to UNICEF for education and empowerment of girls in Jordan. According to Girls Not Brides, the UK organization, 10% of women of girls in Jordan are married off, and this number is likely to be to increase because of the effects of COVID and the existence of so many refugees now in Jordan. So a lot of girls there at risk, and this contribution, if you choose to make it, will go to a very good cause. So with that, I think I would like to invite Chantal and Elena up to the stage for their closing remarks. Thank you.
Well, just how can I say thank you, thank you. Gracias a todos. What we have here today, I'm still digesting. It's a lot. It's a lot what we have heard, and it's a lot what it's for. I mean, time now working on this, and every day you see that, as you said, there is no time to stop. But today has been amazing. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todas las panelistas. Habéis sido no solo inspiradoras, pero realmente motor de acción para seguir como sector privado defendiendo y trabajando y contribuyendo. Y quería dar también las gracias muy especiales a Radia Buziane y a todo el equipo del Palace por su gran hospitalidad. Como sector privado y como empresa privada se unieron a nuestro Dugut desde el primer día, desde el año 2023 con Nada. Fue un matrimonio no forzado para nada, porque compartimos visión. Y también quería dar las gracias por esta visión también a otro activista que tenemos desde hace mucho tiempo compartiendo sueños, ilusiones, que es el artista TV Boy, Salvatore, también lo tenemos aquí, que supo ilustrar cómo ha de ser el futuro de una niña cuando lo elige ella. Gracias a todos, gracias a todas por estar aquí con nosotros y actuemos. Os pido que actuemos. Gracias, Chantal.
I'm going to be very short. I'm between you and lunch, so it's super short. No, a massive thank you. Muchas gracias to all our panelists, Amy, for a beautiful job, and for everyone who's helped make this happen. It takes a movement of people to really pull this together. And this is not one event. This is a commitment that we, the Bicester Collection, have. And you'll hear a lot more about what's coming in our journey. But as I wrap up, I have one question for you, which is how will you use your power, your voice, your industries to really raise awareness, raise engagement, and make a change? It is our collective effort that can create this ripple effect of change. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.